You know, I remember the book for this coming out and just wondering why on earth you'd ever dream of trying to follow up The Shining in any form. Plus, there's all the differences between the movie and the book, so if you then adapt the sequel to the book into a movie, what in the hell are you going to do about those little discrepancies? So, yeah, it turns out Mike Flanagan was ahead of me on that one. Well played, sir. Well played. So let's be real on The Shining. Not a movie you can show to millennials for the first time in this day and age with anywhere near the same effect it had if you saw it when you were a kid. I tried it with a buddy this week, did not fly. That being said, The Shining's more often than not also one of those greatest flicks you never saw, so like 2001 or Psycho, where it's now so iconic that even if you haven't seen the damn thing, general pop culture holds it in such iconography or has lampooned it so often that you likely know all the story beats anyway. Obviously, that's a hell of a legacy for any movie, but it does have a detrimental effect if and when you try and follow it up. I mean, both the actual poster for Dr. Sleep and a moment within it feature a dramatic beat in which Ewan McGregor peers through the infamous hacked-up door frame from The Shining, but once you've seen everyone from Homer Simpson to Lenny Henry do it in the 40 years since Here's Johnny, it does kind of take a little bit of the sting out of it. To say nothing of Ready Player One's film adaptation stealing a shit ton of the thunder from this movie's oh-so-fan-friendly third act. That being said, there's more than enough in play here to justify giving The Shining a sequel. It's got some fresh cards to lay out, it's got an intense kind of atmosphere going on, the performances are great. I mean, Hugh McGregor's arguably the worst performance in play, and even he's perfectly fine. And, well, like its predecessor, it knows that the real path to success is in using the length and the bulk of its runtime to, I don't know, build some actual dread. Hell, it even goes some way towards bridging the gap between the Shining novel and movie, and that ain't nothing. So, Dr. Sleep's set in 2011, and young Danny Torrance is now disheveled alcoholic loner Dan Torrance, drifting his way into a small town looking for some kind of redemption. So he winds up in AA and sets about getting his life back together, and, well, that's something that's not made any easier by his kind of lingering shining powers, but also the kind of connection that they form between him and a, well, similarly gifted young girl named Abra, as in Cadabra. Yeah, so it's a connection that then makes them both targets for this supernatural cult that, feed on the life force of people who have the Shining. Sounds ridiculous, but that right there, that's where you get the big win on the casting front here, because that cult's led by Rebecca Ferguson as Rose the Hat. Now, we've been spoon-fed the idea that Ferguson's the next big thing since about literally 4 seconds after she turned up in Mission Impossible, but I don't think there'd be too much debate that her subsequent roles in, Life, The Greatest Showman, The Girl on the Train, The Snowman, Florence Foster Jenkins, Despite the Falling Snow, Men in Black International, and The Kid Who Would Be King, haven't exactly offered the rock star turns promised by that. I'm happy then to say that Dr. Sleep is actually the one that bucks the trend. Rose is absolutely the standout player here. She's got the old seductive witch figures of lore with something of a vampiric element tossed in for good measure, and big ups to 13-year-old newcomer Kaylee Curran meanwhile too as Abra. She's got this great balance going on between being the terrified child figure and the sort of headstrong redemptive totem for Danny. I'm not calling him Dan off. That kind of makes for a really impressive debut though, and as for Ewan McGregor as well, look, he's really not bringing an awful lot to the table here that he hasn't served up a dozen or so times before, but he does manage to inject Danny with just enough sort of self-defeating sadness that, well, he works within the confines of this particular story. Also, Bruce Greenwood turns up in this, and I'll be goddamned if I don't cheer in a cinema screen every time that guy rocks up. Sidebar, how weird is it that Jeffrey Hunter was the most forgettable guy in all of Star Trek, and yet we've now had not one but 2 awesome Captain Pikes in a decade. Anyway, all of this is burying the lead, and that lead is writer-director Mike Flanagan. I've been a fan of this guy for years, and he evidently is something of a Stephen King fanboy, having directed Gerald's Game, starring guess who? As well as non-kingy horror fare like Oculus and Hush and that Ouija prequel-sequel thing that shit all over the first one, and Before I Wake, and a little Netflix show you might have heard of called, The Haunting of Hill House. Guy knows his craft, clearly respects, but noticeably doesn't revere The Shining, which makes a big difference, and he knows just how to tell his specific story within a world that's both uniquely his and yet still kind of familiar to the fanboys. It's prosaic in that it knows the style and the cadence to play for established effect, but though it lacks the grand majesty, if it were, of what's come before, it's got a singular and unique enough vernacular of its own to drop in. It's creepy, it's nasty, it's unpleasant, it's everything you want from a Shining sequel, whilst still being decidedly its own, admittedly more Dead Zone-y kind of thing. You likely won't appreciate it on the same level if you've never seen or have just forgotten The Shining, but there's still a rocking, slow burn horror drama thriller thing to be found all the same. It's all in the build quality, and Flanagan's absolutely gone back to the well to see what his team can pull up here, and the Newton brothers score this, outright unsettling effect, and Mike Fiumanari shoots it like the world's highest end fan film, particularly in the third act, and the production design alone will fill you with enough of an uneasy feeling to have you, squirming at times. It's eerie, it's anxiety inducing, it's pretty much everything you'd want a Shining sequel to be, and definitely everything you'd want a Mike Flanagan movie to be. Too much fan service, as always. Then again, movie in 2019, but it's a pretty ballsy return to, what was previously a one-and-done brand unto itself. Will Dr. Sleep ever be held in such esteemed regard as The Shining? No. But as sequels to iconic movies go, this one can sit right up there alongside, 2010, Two Jakes, and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and being a sequel that gets you what you loved the first time, ups the game a little, and emerges maybe not quite as shiny, but a little more popcorn-friendly and affair. 4 stars from me. For context, I'll call The Shining a 5, so check in, kick back, let those elevator doors open. Someone I've been a fan of since the moment I first saw her as the villain in 22 Jump Street is Gillian Bell. In fact, when I discovered the series Workaholics a year or two later, solid air punch for discovering she was part of the cast. Hilarious performer, always happy to see her. Now even happier she's got her own starring vehicle in Brittany Runs a Marathon, which is this great indie-style dramedy opening this week. The premise involves a bipartisan committee establishing an investigation into voter irregularities and gerrymandering in a previously neglected district of with you. It's about a lady named Brittany who runs a marathon. She's a young overweight party girl who doesn't look after herself, and she gets advised by a doctor to shed a few pounds before she does irreparable damage, which she then attempts to do by taking up running with the aid of a similarly out of shape new friend and a lonely fitness freak divorcee neighbor played by Michaela Watkins. It's the feature debut of writer-director Paul Downs-Colazzo, and it's a good one. It's very now, but at the same time not in any way patronizing about it. It has things to say about not only physical, but mental well-being and self-care and things like that, but never dulls or drops its edge for a moment. It's hysterically funny without losing focus on the drama. It's grippingly dramatic without ever losing the laughs. It's a win all the way to the finish line. I love Gillian Bell in it. She's terrific. She gives the comedic bits, in particular, way more nuance than would have been needed for a basic pass, and I'm always happy to see Michaela Watkins in anything. Hell, this movie's so good, even Lil Rel turns up in it. 5 stars, get it seen, great movie. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, rate, and review.